And I just kept thinking about them. God, you're helping him. It's amazing, to see how far this horse has come.
It's not easy, it's hard. We would rather starve than let our horses starve. We want the horses. We want to help them. We want to be able to make a difference in their lives.
The views and opinions expressed in this presentation are solely those of the presenter and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of Horse Plus Humane Society, the Full Circle of Life Network, or any of their employees or management. The information contained in this presentation is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute professional advice. Any reliance you place on such information is strictly at your own risk. We strongly encourage you to conduct your own independent research and seek professional advice as needed.
We are going to start a little bit early since we've got double booking today. And this topic is very, very important. I know I said that how you run the business is very important, but this comes back to you first, and you're the one running the business. And if you're not taking time for yourself and taking time to breathe, you're not going to be able to run a successful business. So compassion fatigue is real. I already see it on our faces. And if you watch the first episode or the first season of Course Rescue Heroes on Amazon, where we started the mentoring with ponytails in Wisconsin, I mentioned the word compassion fatigue, and when she understood what it was, she was crying. And I could see it on her face. She was so burnt out at that point. I'm like, I don't even know if this organization can continue. And she's told me, like, if it wasn't for you coming in and talking about compassion fatigue and helping me, like, this organization wouldn't be going. And I have so many organizations that have told me, like, if I didn't learn these things, our organization would be shut down. Early on, and the haters started rising up when we started doing free euthanasia clinics for horses. I was reading the comments, and it was mentally draining. And I'm like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but we're like, animal controls and dog and cat shelters, they rescue animals. They're like open admission. They handle euthanasia. Let's go learn all we can from the dog and cats world and apply it to horses. And in one of those classes, I learned about compassion fatigue, and I was like, okay, I can work on myself. And if we're going to run horse rescues and we're going to run businesses that are helping animals, we have to take care of ourselves. So this is very, very important, and it applies to everybody. For those of us who are married and our husbands are working like crazy in the middle of the night moving kennels and hay bales and stuff when they come back from work, they're also experiencing this. So it involves everyone. When you leave the shelter, you go home. It involves your family. When you leave the shelter and you're supposed to go hang out with some friends, but you're too tired, it affects your friends. It affects your religious church life. It affects everything. And so that's why we're going to talk about it. If you don't take care of yourselves, you cannot take care of others. And that is 100% the reality of what we have to look at. If you're not taking care of yourself, you cannot long-term take care of other beings. And usually within 3 to 5 years, organizations burn out and they're done. And I know I talked to someone earlier today, and it didn't even take that long for an organization. Like, you start rescuing animals because you love them. The idea of rescuing horses seems fluffy and fun. And as you get down into it, it gets so evil of what we have to see that it messes with us emotionally, mentally. We're fried and we're toast. And if we don't take time to acknowledge what it's doing to us and take time for us, none of us are going to be here rescuing horses in the long term. And if you watch the last season of Course Rescue Heroes, where we're mentoring all these organizations, last year, at the end of it, I'm like, I am so exhausted from everything that we were doing with the event. And there was other things with the organization. I'm like, I have to. And I was pretty open and raw because nobody's immune to compassion fatigue. It comes and it goes depending on your circumstance of what you're dealing with. And I knew, I was like, boy, if I keep going at this rate, I'm going to be toast. And I was opening up to the organization so they could see the reality of it. Like, in any circumstance that you're in, it can seem great, but then you also kind of like, horses with their quality of life, are they still out enjoying doing all these things? Look at yourself. Are you still out enjoying these things that you should be doing? So how do we take care of ourselves so we can take care of others? Getting overwhelmed, stressed, exhausted. I think it really comes down to, we can't save all the horses. I personally cannot save all the horses. And I know we've had some questions thrown out, like, hey, what if we're asked to help all these animals? If your organization is not able to, don't do it. Like, just because you're asked to do it, if financially, they're not there to help cover the expenses of this, even to the point where you hire more people to help take care of the influx of animals, you're going to put those animals in a worse situation if you're already toasting in the toaster and you bring more animals into the situation because, well, we've got to help these animals. So, what are some things that we do to take care of rescue horses? We're all here, we've all talked about it, we've got vets up here talking, like, we do a lot to take care of rescued animals. So we have their vet checkups, we want to make sure those horses are okay, we want to make sure that their lungs are good, their gush sounds are good, their teeth are good. Like, we go over and make sure that these horses are well on their way on an intake. We want to make sure that they're okay. And then we're going to do hoof care. We're going to make sure their hooves are good. Like, these are all high priorities for all of us as rescuers with these horses coming in. We want to make sure that these animals are okay. We're also going to exercise the horses. We're going to take care of their physical health, their hooves, and also like their exercise program. We're going to make sure that these horses are getting what they need. We're also going to make sure they have socialization. We don't want to like lock them in a little stall box and like, that's it. Like, we want these animals that we're rescuing and bringing in, like, we're pouring our heart and soul and hours into these animals to make sure that they're getting all of these things that we know they need. And we also need to think of, what do we do to take care of ourselves? So we do a lot to take care of horses and other animals and our families, but what are we doing to take care of ourselves? Like, are you missing meals to take care of the animals? Like, you hear a lot of people say like, oh, I will miss a meal before my animals, which, that's fine. But on a rescue ongoing basis, like, if you're not eating, you're not sleeping, how long ago was it that you took a vacation? These are things that haters love to prey on, like, okay, you went on vacation. You need to go on vacation. You have to take care of your mental health. You have to step away and then breathe and find yourself. So, are you, neglecting your family for horses? Can you take a day off? One thing that, for us, every Saturday is our day off, unless it's emergency. Like, I had no problem going out and helping with a emergency case, fire evacuation, whatever, but every Saturday is our family day. And I can guarantee you that if we did not do that, I would not be here 21 years down the road of animal welfare. You have to take time for yourself. And it is crucially important. So, we have no problem getting horses checked up, make sure that their health is good, all of this stuff. What about your own health? Like, these are important things to be thinking about. We spend thousands of dollars making sure horses get their vet care. Well, what about yourself? Getting checked up? What about taking the time to make sure your own hooves are okay? Like, taking that time to sit back and taking care of yourself is so, so critical. And it's something we as rescuers start really just, getting in a rut of our days are the exact same over and over. And we're doing everything we can every single day to help these horribly abused animals. And we're getting more and more phone calls to help more and more animals. And we are completely letting ourselves drain out. We're losing ourselves within the organization. And at the end of this, we all have say 80 years, 4,000 weeks of our lives. We spend weeks after weeks after weeks rescuing these animals, losing ourselves entirely, and not taking care of ourselves. But it is so crucially important. About exercise. We have no problem making that horse run around the round pen, right? Come on, you gotta go. What about yourself? Take that time to make sure that you're doing everything. If you're doing it to the horses, and it's really important to get that checkup, your hooves done, exercise, all of these things, you need to make sure you're turning it around and doing it on yourself too. I already see tears in this room, and you probably hear my voice, and I'm like, oh, this is so critical, because I see so many rescues burn out, and I see so many amazing people get into rescue, and they want to pour their heart and soul into it, and they last about 5 years. And it's preventable if we take care of ourselves. And it's something that we really have to do, and we have to socialize. So many times in rescue, we throw away our friendships. Wives will throw away their families, their husbands, and they throw everything away because we save that next horse. And there will always be that next horse and that next horse. And if you take care of yourself, you can be there, but you have to take the time to make sure that you're mentally okay, you're checked in and being okay. And in the rescue world, it is something that is, we all talk about compassion fatigue, but with the thanks of Chandra and some other great folks, we're gonna be taking this to another level, because there is such a mental health crisis in the animal rescue world. I don't know how many people come in to work at a shelter environment, whether it's dogs, cats, horses, you name it. They pour their heart and soul into this, and mentally it starts messing. Mental health is so important to have mental health programs within the organization. That's something we're working very hard on, actually having a mental health program for animal workers. Because the things that we see are so incredibly horrific. Do you think it causes PTSD? You lay in bed sometimes at night thinking about that animal that was literally just like shredded, and all you could do was stand beside that horse and be like, I am so sorry, and I have to say goodbye to you, and that hurts. If it doesn't hurt, you're in the wrong industry. But you will see over the course of time, you have to be able to take yourself and be professional. Like Carrie was saying, when you're on a law enforcement case, you can't let your emotions show. And we have to bury our emotions down pretty hard on some of these cases that we see, but it is there. There is so much pain wrapped around rescuers' hearts, and we don't talk about it. We try to be strong, and we are dying inside because we are giving everything to that next animal and that next animal. And if we don't pause and breathe and take care of ourselves, your organization is going to be shut down. It's going to be like, oh, well, we thought that organization was good, but they're gone now too. We can't constantly living in a crisis mode. Your organization needs to get to a point and it really helps, with managing capacity and fundraising and all of these things, you can get to a point where you're not always in crisis mode. Now, obviously, big rescue happens, you're gonna be pouring everything into your organization during that time, but it can't always be in crisis mode. So, how to avoid compassion fatigue? It's going to happen. And I think one of the saddest things is, with my SAC, we talk about compassion fatigue, and when I start saying something like, I'm fine, we say like, let's make sure we have work-life balance, and I'm fine, and I'm like, oh dear, we're not fine. We are struggling. And, how many times do you ask somebody like, oh, how's your day? Oh, it's great. And inside they are weeping. We have to be honest with what's going on within our lives of the rescue. And I can guarantee you every single organization that's within this network is a safe place to talk to other organizations and be like, I had a horrible rescue mission. You would not believe the animals that were at this neglect case, and there was dead horses laying around, and the dogs were running around with coarse intestines, and it was horrible. You got to be able to have those people you can reach out and talk to it, and don't call your biggest donor and tell them. It's going to be way too much for that. You have to have a network of organizations that can come together and lift you up. And I think the biggest thing you have to think about is if somebody's worried about you, there's a reason. They're not trying to be like, hey, we're going to pick on her now. I think you've got some issues. I think you need to take a break. They're telling you because they're genuinely concerned about you. And, through our organization over 21 years, I've seen people go from very passionate about an organization to hating it. And it comes down to compassion fatigue. And, you're trying to talk with them. We actually did a class in this very room because I was very worried about one of our staff members who had been with us for going on 5 years. She was in that time frame, and we paid to have a presentation all on compassion fatigue. Like, this is what it was, and she was zoned out the entire time. And like everything I tried to do to reach her, nothing worked. And she got completely burnt out, and she lost ties with her family member. It was a horrible situation, but we can lose ourselves in these organizations, and that is not what needs to happen. We can be so strong together, but we have to look out for each other. We have to take care of our mental health. And if you're in this network and you see, one of the other organizations, maybe they just did a really rough-looking rescue mission, like, reach out to them, say, hey, I'm here for you guys. You're doing a great job. And hopefully you can take a break and take some time for yourself. There was a horrible tornado that came through Hole and Wall and literally shredded a boarding stable. They had this big, beautiful barn. The tornado came through, just demolished this entire facility. There was a mama and baby horse in the barn that was completely untouched other than one little scrape. And this barn was shredded around them. And it was like, how on earth did this even happen? But I'm watching these ladies that run the boarding stable, and we're there moving the horses for them and try to get them safe. And I'm just thinking, they're gonna need a break. They need mental health right now. They need people to surround them and lift them up and encourage them to take time to breathe. Go take that Epsom salt bath. Take time for yourself, because we're in crisis mode. Your body goes into a situation where you're not really thinking about what needs to happen. You're not thinking about, boy, I really should drink some water. And pretty soon you're passed out on the ground, and everyone's like, oh no. It's preventable, because if we're taking care of ourselves, we're not going to end up in those situations. And if you see somebody, another rescuer that has been on the front lines saying something traumatic, check in with them. We are the ones that can help each other. Other places, different people, you might have a best friend that doesn't do rescue work, and you've gone through something really traumatic. And you're talking about this, and she is like, I know my friend rescues horses, but this is too much. Like, she's talking about a horse that its intestines are on the ground and the horse is walking and the intestines are getting wrapped through the legs, and I do not need to hear this. All of us here are in this field of work where we can reach out, and we're coming from a place of understanding. If I call up Carrie and I'm like, Carrie, we've been in some rough situations, and I feel like Carrie and I have seen so much that a lot of times, like, you know, we've buried so much down because we've had to, that we can seem really strong, but I can promise you we're not. At the end of the day, when we're laying in bed, we're thinking about things that we shouldn't be because we should be sleeping. And then we're not getting rest. It's a vicious circle. So how are we going to do things to avoid compassion fatigue? And I know the first time I was listening to a class, and they were talking about it, I mean, maybe for like 5 minutes, but, you know, like, to avoid compassion fatigue, you know, well, what do you do? And I'm like, what do I do to avoid compassion fatigue? I don't know. I don't think I do anything. And a lot of us, we all did this because, like, we love horses. Horses used to be our hobby. Weekends, we go riding, we do all these things. Now horses are not our hobby. We have to have things outside of horses that are our hobby. And those are really hard to develop and do. But, like, the presentations, like, you know, presenters, like, even if you take up knitting, you're doing something with your hands, you're creating something, you have to do something different that's outside of animals, and that can be hard. And then we have those keyboard warrior trolls out there that know when to hit us the hardest. And so this is like, you know, Tawnee's a horrible person. Cheating horses, bolt guns, go back to California, you're a scammer, all these things. Okay, so yes, we do support all the AAP approved methods for euthanasia because they all have their time and place. If, like I said, if there was a trailer accident and there was a horse that needed euthanasia, a bolt gun is going to be the safest situation. If there's not a vet, you know, that might be 2 hours out and that horse is sitting there with a flopping broken leg. You don't want to let an animal suffer. But these trolls out there love to just nitpick you apart. And if you have a really bad day and because when we're, like, experiencing that compassion fatigue, mentally we are not where we should be. And then we go and read stuff like that, that's toxic. We don't need to read stuff like that. There will always be people that hate us. We don't need to associate it with that. Everybody can have their own opinion out there. I don't have to weigh in on opinions. It used to be 25, 30 years ago, somebody leaving nasty comments like that would actually have to come tell you to your face or write you a letter. And by the time they wrote that letter out, they might have been like, well, Mama said I shouldn't say your name. If, you know, they might change their mind. The internet is such a volatile place where people can just, like, so much hatred out there everywhere. And it's causing a mental health crisis in the United States and the world. So many people commit suicide because they read some hateful thing on the internet about them and they're not in a good mental place. And they do exactly what those haters want them to do. So my best advice is, for me, have someone in your organization, and guys can be a lot better at reading hateful stuff because guys' boxes, their brains are like boxes. Like, they have the hater box, they have the mechanic box, they have all these different boxes, and they can hop in there and they can work around and, like, yep, okay, this is what's going on, and they jump out of it and they're fine. Us women, we're like spaghetti. We go like, it's going everywhere. And, like, they might read the hater stuff and then we're over here trying to do this, and little spaghetti noodles like, dwing, oh no, why did they say that? Like, you can have somebody who can check out what the haters are saying if there's something that needs to be addressed, but otherwise don't go there. You know, some employees of a company, did you see what they said? I'm like, I don't need to know this, and they don't need to know it either. Avoid what they're saying. They have nothing better in their life other than to scrutinize yours. I mean, that's pretty sad. But focusing on the positives And also focusing on the reality of why we do what we do. And this is going to be very hard for everyone in this room. But for me, sometimes when I am like, we just rescued 50-something horses and 20 of them needed euthanasia, I have to pull myself back and say, why are we doing what we're doing? And horses are being shipped by the thousands to slaughter, and it is not humane. It is horrific. And we can't save them all. And if we don't save them, this is what happens. And I'm gonna show you footage from inside of slaughterhouse. If you don't want to see it, you can look down. But I want to emphasize that we are rescuers on the front line. If we don't know why we're rescuing horses and what we're rescuing them from, how are we supposed to tell other people why they need to be saved? Sometimes we have to take a step back and look at the reality of what we're saving these horses from. And then when we have to put down horses that are suffering and stand there beside them, like, it was way better than what would have happened at the slaughterhouse. And again, you can just look down. What happens to horses in the slaughter pipeline is so horrific. And I'm not going to continue the video. This horse is an old skinny horse. And we rescue those horses in auctions. We rescue them out at the slaughter pipeline. And the haters are like, oh, they don't slaughter skinny horses. That is an old skinny horse that is down at the slaughterhouse. They put a chain around his neck and pull him into the kill area. He literally is hung to death in this video. And for me, when we rescue horses and I can know that we gave them the last act of kindness, it is the biggest gift that we can give a horse compared to that. And when rescuers are like, well, I'm just going to rescue the adoptable horses, they're turning horses away to that. And if we're really going to make a difference for horses, we need to be rescuing the ones from that, not the adoptable horses that most likely could go on and find homes on their own. And so when somebody's like, it's a waste to rescue an old horse just to euthanize it, we're saving them from that. That is horrifically horrible, and this video just keeps going. This is a video from Mexico where these horses are being exported out of the United States to Mexico. These horses were being electrocuted. That's why they were hosing them down with water. And there's other ways that they're killed. They take a knife to the top of their neck and hit the spinal column until they paralyze their back legs, and they hoist them up and slit their throats out alive. Canada, a lot of times it's gunshot, or they're exported alive over to Japan, where they're brutally killed. This is the reality of why we're rescuing horses. And it's very sobering to think about it, but as a euthanasia technician, sometimes it's my duty when they're doing the intake to be the one euthanizing those horses. And at the end of the day, when I had to euthanize 20 horses, I feel pretty rough. And if I watch that, and I'm like, that was the biggest gift that we could have given those horses, because if we didn't rescue them, that's what would have happened. I need my PowerPoint put back onto the presentation because it's on YouTube right now. What we do is so important, and that's what we're saving horses from. And I really think it's frustrating in the fact that we can't tell that story to our donors. Anytime we do, too much, and it will just continue and continue and continue to happen. And I've tried sometimes to be like, this is what's happening to horses. People don't want to see that. None of us wanted to see that, but that's the reality of what we're saving horses from. And so for me personally, doing a big rescue mission, and maybe I'm the one that's the euthanasia person that day and I have to euthanize 20 suffering horses, that brings me back to the reality of why I'm doing what I'm doing. And it is a tough field of work, but we have to look at ourselves, we have to take care of ourselves, and we have to focus on the positives. Those adoptions that happen are wonderful things, but how often do we not focus on those adoptions? We get so wrapped up in everything else. So focusing on those really happy things is very, very important. And I just can't stress enough that you want to really take care of yourself and find a hobby that you can do that's outside of horses. And that's really, really rough for all of us because like I said, horses used to be our hobby at one point. And that's what we were passionate about. And you took that passion and put it to a spot that is literally destroying us. And we have to take the time to breathe and step away and find something else that we like doing. And for me, I really like being out in the woods. I like four-wheeling. So I got myself a Jeep. You probably have seen it around. And I take that thing on some rough trails, but I can tell you it's really good. When I'm going down a crazy steep hill and trying to get back up, my mind is not thinking about the rescue world at that moment. You need a hobby that can take you into a different place from where you're constantly at in that we've got to rescue more and more horses mode. You know, maybe you live near a lake or a big river and you can get a jet ski. Because if you're flying around on a jet ski, you're thinking about what you're doing at that moment. And that's really important and I think very critical to all of our rescuers out there. You really need to have some type of hobby that you can really focus on that really takes your mind somewhere else. And, you know, you can be sitting somewhere, you know, maybe decide to get your loops done, and you can be sitting there thinking about everything else in that moment of, you know, trying to take care of yourself. But there is some fun activity that you can get into that can take your mind to a new place. Because if we constantly are in the rescue ditch, ultimately in the long run, we're going to die in that ditch. We have to have something else that we can do. So in your handouts, there's actually a compassion fatigue assessment that you can look at, and it is a very good assessment. And I would highly recommend of taking that assessment like every quarter, checking in. If you have volunteers or staff members that are working at your organization, take that time to say, hey, let's take the assessment. And you don't like, I mean, we're not gonna ask you to share your numbers or anything like that, but internally, I want you to take a moment to fill out that assessment or, you know, look it over thoroughly. It helps to fill it out because on the back it will give you number areas that you can fill in, and you can actually take that time to really think about taking care of yourself. And if you're in that compassion fatigue area, it wouldn't surprise me if, like, all of us are experiencing some type of compassion fatigue. Really taking that time to pause, be like, okay, if I continue down this route, my mental health is not going to be good at all. What can I do to take a step back in my organization? And for a lot of it, we're on the front lines as founders, like we're cleaning all the stalls, we're doing all these things. Taking the time to do something different might be spending time connecting with those donors that love your organization and listening to them. And calling them up and just be like, thank you so much for supporting our organization. I just personally wanted to call you and they will tell you so many great things about you and your organization. Yeah, like, wow, that was really nice to hear. Take that time to do something different. If you're experiencing compassion fatigue, take the time to create a hobby for yourself. And it's not watching TV, as great as that, you know, because that was my thing. I was like, when I first heard it, I'm like, well, I like watching TV. I'll kick my feet up and relax. It's really actually doing something physically with your body out there. And, you know, exercising, like, you know, we had a picture of Jason at the gym. I try to do a mile on the treadmill and 6 to 7 miles on the exercise bike, you know, almost every work day. So if you watch the TV show, we're both of us, Jason and I, that morning, like, we were there this morning. Like, there's really no excuse not to take care of yourself and exercise. And when you get in a routine of it, it's like, okay, running isn't that bad anymore. And I started, it's like, oh, I'm gonna die. But take that time to make time to take care of yourself. And going to the gym is a great thing. And we often say, well, we need to pay, we do all these things, we do. But I can tell you, when you're frustrated, it feels really good to run on a treadmill. Or it feels really good to be like, paddling, like, and just, it's a way for your body to release that tension. So take that time to, when you go home this evening, take that assessment and really think about how you are with compassion fatigue. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be horse rescue. You can have compassion fatigue with in-laws. You can have compassion fatigue with, you know, whatever it is. There is a whole list of things that can be establishing compassion fatigue in your life. You could be caring for an elderly relative and you need a break from that. Like, there are so many things that can create compassion fatigue. So I'm hoping, okay. I know a lot of you are wondering about Horse Plus history, and we are leaving early tonight, but I'm sending you with homework. So you've got the compassion fatigue assessment to do. And I think you all really enjoy watching the history of Horse Plus from the very beginning. So last year was our 20th anniversary for our organization. I think it was last year, right? Yeah. And I don't know why that's not loading. Oh, dear. Can someone try to refresh that? It's going to have a QR code that you can scan, and it will take you to that YouTube video. And take the time to watch it. It's pretty interesting. From, you know, the time I was 19 years old, starting this organization, we went back to like almost every facility we went to. And there was one of them where it was the first facility, and there was a course that I needed to watch closely because I think she was gonna have a baby or it was colicking or whatever. So up next to this little house where we started our married life, I was like, you know what, there's these trees here. I can build a pen out of logs and I can have this horse in there. And my gate that I needed, I literally took a saw out into the woods and cut down small trees and made a gate and stuff. But that's sometimes what it takes. You gotta just do what it takes to make your organization work. So definitely take the time to watch that. It just doesn't like to do, just open it up out of presentation mode. I think they can, and you can zoom in on it even, like just refresh the page and then zoom in on it. You know how to zip? Zoom there. Okay, there you go. So you should be able to scan that. Take the time to watch it, and I think it will inspire you that sometimes it takes a long time to grow an organization, but it is 100% hard work, dedication, and taking care of yourself. Great things can happen. But it's definitely one of the hardest jobs you can have out there. So I know this was a very tough topic to address, and I know it hit home for a lot of people, and it's the reality that we all face, and that's definitely something we need to take the time to think about. And I hope that you all go home and are like, I'm gonna get a jet ski, or I'm gonna get a Jeep. I'm gonna go do something different. Because if you take that time to do something different, you'll be here in the next 5-10 years, and you'll be loving what you're doing. And if you don't, take care of yourself in the next, from now to 5 years, most likely, you're going to be like, this is enough. I can't do this, because it's your body screaming for help. And all you know at that point to do is like, I have to quit. And you all are amazing people who can do amazing things, but you've got to take care of yourself to do it. So thank you.